I never thought my silence would raise a child who'd be treated like dirt by her own blood. My daughter Mila was only 10. She was quiet, polite, and always trying to win the approval of a family that never deserved her light. She was my miracle after a long, lonely marriage, a shy little girl with big hazel eyes and a love for old books. And for the most part, I had kept her away from the toxicity I grew up with. But that changed when I was forced to move back into my parents' house after my divorce. Please subscribe to our channel and tell us in comments from where are you watching this video. It was supposed to be temporary, just 6 months while I rebuilt. But 6 months turned into 8, and suddenly I was juggling night shifts, childcare, and the crushing weight of being treated like an uninvited guest in my childhood home. My sister Dana had never grown up. 32, unemployed, still living with our parents, and cruel in a way that hid behind sarcastic laughs and fake lashes. She was the golden child, even though I had been the one working since I was 16, paying bills when Dad was drinking and Mom was checked out. Donna saw Mila as a nuisance. "She's too quiet, it's weird," she'd say. Or, "You sure she's not slow like her mom?" But the worst day of my life came on a Sunday morning. I had just come home from a double shift at the diner. My feet were burning, my hands smelled like burnt oil, and all I wanted was 5 minutes with my daughter. I opened the front door and heard laughter coming from the upstairs bathroom. At first, I thought it was just Dana making one of her dramatic FaceTime calls, but then I heard Mila crying, soft, choked, panicked. I ran upstairs. What I saw made me freeze. Mila was on her knees in the upstairs bathroom, scrubbing the toilet with her bare hands. No gloves, no brush, just a rag and a bottle of bleach beside her. Her face was red, her sleeves rolled up, and she looked like she'd been doing it for a while. Dana stood in the doorway with her phone, filming. My mother was behind her, sipping tea and chuckling. "She spilled juice on the carpet," Dana said. "So I told her this is how we teach kids to be useful." My breath caught. "You made her scrub the toilet with her hands?" Dana rolled her eyes. "Don't be so dramatic. It's just a joke. She'll live." I turned to my mom, expecting at least a flicker of shock, but she just waved me off. "You coddle her too much. You were always soft. That's why your marriage fell apart." Mila looked up at me, tears running down her cheeks, lips trembling, and I froze. Not because I didn't want to scream, not because I didn't want to grab Dana's phone and throw it across the hall, but because this moment burned into my chest like a scar, a moment I knew I'd never forget. I didn't react like they wanted. I didn't yell, didn't cry. I slowly walked into the bathroom, picked Mila up, wrapped her in my coat, and left. That night, I didn't sleep. Mila did eventually after hours of rocking her in my arms, washing her hands again and again until she stopped whispering, "Am I dirty now?" I stared at the ceiling with a dead calm in my chest. They thought I was weak. They thought I'd move on. They didn't know I had been recording everything too, not with my phone, but with memory. Every insult, every slap from the past, every lie they told Mila about earning her place. They thought they still had power. They didn't realize they had just handed it to me, and I wasn't going to waste it. The next morning, Mila didn't want to eat. She just sat by the window of our small rental, a 1-bedroom above a bakery that smelled like yeast and burned sugar hugging her knees. I offered her oatmeal, then pancakes, even hot cocoa, but she only whispered, "They laughed, Mommy." And that broke me more than anything Dana or my parents had ever done to me. The betrayal wasn't just about the toilet, it was the casual cruelty, the filming, the way my mother sipped her tea like nothing was wrong. My little girl had been humiliated in a house where I had once been slapped for crying too loudly. I called a lawyer that same afternoon. Not for revenge, not yet, for custody protection, for documentation, for a restraining order. I didn't want Dana or my parents near Mila ever again. But while the legal paperwork crawled through the system, I needed to act quietly, strategically. First, I called my cousin Ava, the one person in my family who had cut contact with everyone years ago. She was a freelance documentary editor in Chicago and had once told me, If you ever want to expose something, I'll be your girl. I asked her if she was still serious. She was. I gathered everything: audio clips of Dana mocking Mila at dinner, photos of bruises from old punishments my mother had once called firm discipline, and yes, I retrieved the video Dana had filmed of Mila scrubbing the toilet because Dana had posted it in her group chat with a laughing emoji and the caption, "Teaching my niece some respect." One of her old friends forwarded it to me. "I didn't think she was serious until I saw this," the girl wrote. "I'm so sorry." Ava and I began working, quietly. She stitched together voiceovers, added subtitles, blurred Mila's face. It wasn't about going viral, not yet. It was about building undeniable proof of years of psychological abuse, of a culture of humiliation that had somehow passed as parenting. Meanwhile, I moved from the bakery flat to a slightly better apartment. I picked up extra cleaning jobs, saved every dime, and homeschooled Mila while she healed. We planted herbs on the windowsill. We named the plants after stars. She started painting again. And one afternoon, while she was drawing a picture of a little girl in a raincoat hugging a cat, she looked up and said, "Mommy, I don't want to go back to Grandma's ever again." I smiled. "You won't. I promise." That was the day I felt something inside me settle, not harden, clarify. Now it was time to start the next part. I didn't confront Dana. I didn't storm my parents' porch. I did something much quieter. I contacted the organization that had just accepted my sister into their volunteer PR internship, a nonprofit that worked with youth mental health. I sent them the video. I attached the screenshots from her chat. Then I sent the same to the local school board where my mother worked part-time as a student counselor. "Just in case," I wrote in the subject line, "you might want a vet who's mentoring children." Neither job survived the week. My sister's face, perfectly contoured, lips always pursed with superiority, was now spread across a local parenting group's forum, with the caption, "This woman thinks children need to earn love by scrubbing toilets." But I still wasn't done. Because this wasn't just about jobs or reputations. It was about a culture of silence I had grown up with. It was about a family that mocked vulnerability and called it weakness, that treated children like servants and mothers like disposable napkins. So I took everything Ava and I had gathered and I wrote. I published an anonymous essay online titled, "When the Joke is Abuse, How My Daughter Was Humiliated by Her Own Blood." I told the story from my heart. Every line soaked in truth. No names, but enough to cut through anyone who had lived it. The post exploded. Not viral in the flashy sense, but quietly viral. Women in forums, mothers groups, and trauma support circles shared it with captions like, "I thought I was the only one. This is what generational cruelty looks like. This is what jokes do to kids." A week later, I got an email from a publisher. They wanted a book. And suddenly, I had more than justice. I had a voice. And I was about to use it to expose everything. 6 months later, Mila was thriving. Her curls had grown back longer, wilder, like she finally believed she deserved space. She no longer flinched at dropped cutlery. She spoke with more confidence, saying while doing homework, and once told me, "Mommy, I think our plants are proud of us." Meanwhile, Dana was spiraling. She'd tried to go online and play the victim. "That video was taken out of context," she wrote. "It was a family joke." My niece laughed too. But screenshots don't lie, nor do text messages mocking a child for crying. Her internship offers dried up. Her influencer brand flopped. My mother and father? They called twice. First to scream, then to beg. "Do you want us to lose our jobs?" my father thundered in a voicemail. "You're destroying the family," my mother wept. "And for what, Nora? A child's tantrum?" I didn't answer either call. Instead, I answered with something else. I accepted the book deal. And I wrote. Not just about what happened to Mila, but about the entire legacy of generational cruelty, from my own childhood beatings for not smiling at guests, to Dana locking my bedroom as a teen and telling boys at school I was mentally unstable. Every instance was written not with rage, but with calm, surgical truth. The book was titled "The Joke Was Never Funny: Breaking the Silence in a Family That Called It Love." It hit #3 on a small nonfiction chart the month it released. It wasn't viral. It was visible. And that was enough. Because visibility brings truth, and truth invites more people to tell their own. Soon, I started receiving letters, emails, quiet messages from people I'd never met, and some I had thanking me for saying what they never could. Teachers, nurses, a childhood friend who admitted Dana once locked her in a garage. As a prank. But here's where the real revenge happened, and not one soul saw it coming. I was invited to speak at a closed-door community education event, a pilot initiative for school counselors, social workers, and guardians to understand emotional abuse beyond the bruises. It was held at our old district, the same district my mother had worked in. She was seated in the crowd when I took the stage. She didn't recognize me at first. I wore a soft blue suit, hair pinned up, glasses she'd never seen. I introduced myself by my full name, Nora Bennett, author, advocate, and survivor of inherited cruelty. And then, as my mother sat frozen, I opened my slideshow. And the first frame? A blurred still from that infamous video, Mila, tiny knees on tile, scrubbing a toilet while voices laughed off screen. Gasps rippled through the audience. My mother lowered her head, but I didn't look at her again. Because the story wasn't for her, not anymore. It was for the quiet counselor in the back wiping her glasses, the principal who mouthed unbelievable, the mother who approached me after and whispered, "I made my daughter do things like that. I didn't realize, but I'm going to change." That was the moment I knew. My revenge wasn't about taking something away from Dana or my parents. It was about giving something back to those like Mila, like me, like every little girl who had ever been told respect meant humiliation. A few weeks later, I received a letter from the district. My mother had resigned. Not because she was forced, but because, for the first time, the mirror was too clear to stand in front of. Dana? Last I heard, she was working at a pet store in another city, her social pages locked and her influencer friends long gone. And me? I published a second book, this one co-written with Mila. It's titled, Things We Grow After the Storm. And it's full of stories, not of revenge, but of roots. Please subscribe to our channel and tell us in comments from where are you watching this video.